Hey everybody, it's Candy, aka Brown Eyed Girl 69. I know it's been a minute, and but I'm back, and I'm gonna try to finish this book up. It's due next week, but if I haven't finished up reading and posting my videos, I'll probably recheck it out until I can get that finished, and then turn it in. I've been going through just been busy these last, past week or so. Been babysitting my grandchildren a lot, so my daughter and son-in-law can get some things done. Working, and just basically trying to pay attention to things that are happening around the world, but not too much attention. But really trying to focus on myself and try to determine where I really want this channel to go. Because I don't want my channel just to be a channel where I'm ranting and raving all the time about things that I can't control. I don't want to go live and have people come up on my panel that bitch, moan, complain, or any of that. I don't want any negative energy associated at all with my page. If anything, I want my page to be associated with positivity, getting to know yourself, and moving forward in life, doing what you do best, and only you know what that is. Just like me, I've sat here my whole life. I'm 55 years old, and my whole entire life, I've always wondered, what am I supposed to do with my life? Well, I'm really good at storytelling. So I think that's the direction I'm going to try to lead my channel into. And the only reason why I say that is because of the fact that I've been reading this book. And knowing that I have lots of experiences in life, from the time I was a very small child all the way up to present moment. I've had so many experiences, so many perspectives in life given to me just through those experiences, that there's this part of me that just really wants to start sharing with people things that's happened to me in my life. Not for sympathy, not for any or any yay. I just want to be able to share my life because I think that's what I came here to do. I came here to share my life experiences so others can see that even if life happens to you in shapes, forms, and fashions that you weren't expecting, just go with it. Just go with the flow. And that's all I'm going to say on that. Now, we're going to get to reading chapter 3. I started off making a video on chapter 3. I'm sorry. Stop, rewind, go back. I was actually making a video on chapter 2, but when I was doing that, my daughter called me and interrupted me the last time, so hopefully I won't be getting any phone calls while I'm trying to make this video. Anyway, chapter 2 of Mr. Wolf and Me. Chapter 2 of Mr. Wolf and Me. And the chapter's titled Pin Hill. And it might be a few pages, but it's not that many pages. Let's see how far I got to go. Yeah, about 12 pages. So let's go. Let's start. There ought to be some way to tell in advance what kind of day you're getting into. Maybe mornings should come marked like medicine bottles. If a nice, straight, manageable day was coming, the sky could be free and cloudless. But if you were headed into a really murderous time, a small tasteful skull and crossbones could form in dark clouds to give you a warning. That October Thursday was poison if I ever had it. And in defense of my own instincts, I must have been getting some signs and omens because I had put that nut-gathering trip off as long as I could. But it was Thursday that Mom got her head set on go, and she managed to get Mr. Wolf and me tangled up with that Jordan Aggers again. There is only 1 week in the fall when it is worth anyone's time to go gathering hickory nuts. If you go too early, you can shake those limbs until your teeth get loose, but the nuts stay on like they were glued. If you wait 1 week too late, well, an army of squirrels will have marched through the clearing, leaving empty, curled nut holes shoe-top deep and not a nut for miles. On Monday afternoon that week, Mom had said, "I bet that last night's frost brought the hickory nuts down." That was a hint. I told her about the 2 extra pages of map that Mr. Elroy had assigned us after that spitball fight that I didn't start but got blamed for, because when I shot back at Matt Turpin, he ducked, and I hit Mr. Elroy on the left cheek. Tuesday after school, she said, "If you're going after hickory nuts, you better leave right away, because the days are sure getting shorter." That was a suggestion. I showed her the map of the township that I had to have colored in with all the places' names marked by first period if I wanted a social studies grade. She pursed her lips that prim way, but didn't press it. Wednesday, she pointed out that if I went all winter without nuts and Saturday night fudge, I wasn't to blame anyone but myself. That was a threat, and I really considered going, but there was a dark cloud boiling up in the west, and I wondered out loud if she wanted to risk my getting a really rotten cold like I had had the spring before. That time I was out of school for almost 2 weeks, and she had to cancel bridge club and a shopping trip and change my linen twice because the medicine made me sick at my stomach. I wouldn't dare let her hear this, but Mom has a really strange head. It's as if she had gears in there that she shifts at will. Most of the time, she has her head set on neutral, so that her brain just idles. Things flow in and out of her ears without even registering. When she is passing out hints and suggestions, you can figure that she is still idling. When she gets to the threatening stage, you know that the next shift will be into high, and you better be ready to move on demand. Thursday afternoon, she was waiting at the back door when I got in from school. She handed me a mesh sack and a plastic bag of brownies. "I packed these for you to eat on the way," she said. "Go pick hickory nuts." Since that was in order, Mr. Wolf and I were on our way to Pin Hill before the school bus turned around and started back to town. It's a good stiff walk to Pin Hill, past the general store and north, with the land rising steadily after you leave the middle of town behind. After I shared the brownies with Mr. Wolf, he raced ahead to nose into every clump of grass. We stopped to stare at the cornhusk spooks that people had set out for Halloween. It's fun to see what they dressed them in. Great stacks of corn husks with carved pumpkin faces and old work hats, pushed down on straw hair. The same frost that Mom was so sure had brought the hickory nuts down had nipped the jack-o'-lanterns too, so that their smiles slumped crookedly, and sometimes an eye had fallen into a playful wink. And that is the drawing that's put in there for this particular chapter. But I could tell winter was coming from Mr. Wolf's coat. His deep silver and sable hair had already grown in so thick that I could hardly part it enough to see his skin underneath. By the time we reached the center of town and Mr. Wolf had taken a quick run on that wide green place there on the square that everybody calls the Common, it was getting a little chilly. As soon as we started up the hill towards Pin Hill, a really cold little breeze began to whip around us. The trees were blazing with leaf color, and the wind carried the scent of wood fires from the chimneys of houses along the road. All the clearings on Pin Hill looked just the same to me, so I just kept walking until I found an area where the yellow leaves of nut trees were thick in among the darker colors of pin oak. I never worry about getting lost on Pin Hill because of the way Main Street extends due north of the common along those hills. If I just walk straight east, which I can tell if the sunset is at my back, I will always run into the road and be able to find my way back home. By the time I found a clearing with plenty of nuts in it, Mr. Wolf was long gone on his own dog business. I could tell the direction he had taken by the insulting shrieks of jays and the chatter of squirrels telling him off from the safe high limbs. When I had the sack about a third full, he came back to check on me, his tongue hanging out of the side of his mouth and that mischievous smile on his face. I went on crawling in the fallen leaves and scooping nuts into my sack while he went scouting off again. When he first started to bark, I didn't pay any attention. I figured he might have flushed some rabbits or have a particularly irritating squirrel treed. I did notice that his barking went on a long time and was very steady. And when it changed to a low growl, I straightened up and headed and yelled for him to come. That was when I heard the unmistakable sounds of snapping and yelping that meant a fight. I ran, yelling and whistling, but the sounds only got louder. I had dropped my nut bag in the clearing, and I'd ran as fast as I could with the low branches lashing at me as I passed. When I broke through the last line of trees, the whole floor of the clearing was a mass of rolling, snarling fur. Mr. Wolf was locked in a battle with what I thought at first was a small fat dog, but then as they rolled toward me, I saw the face of the meanest looking groundhog ever. He was fat as a custard, and he was raking at Mr. Wolf with old ugly fangs while he hung up on his long claws buried in Mr. Wolf's skin. Mr. Wolf was much bigger and outweighed the groundhog by a whole lot, but the old animal was a far more skilled fighter. I kept shouting while I looked around for a stick to separate them. The first one I found was old and dead and splintered into nothing when I put my weight on it. It seemed like forever before I finally got that strong branch I needed and went back to the clearing. All the stories I've ever heard about groundhogs flashed through my mind, about dogs they had torn up so badly that the dogs had to be put to sleep. And even if it survived, a dog could lose an eye or be crippled for life by one of those varmints. At first it didn't seem that I was even... At first, it didn't seem that I was even going to be able to separate them with the stick. They rolled and wrestled so fast and so ferociously that every time I thought I had a clear aim on the groundhog, he rolled away, and I came within an ace of bashing my own dog. Finally, I got my chance by just dancing around them with the stick, poised in the air like a Japanese dancer or something. When I saw an opening, I plunged the stick between their bodies, bringing it down hard so that the groundhog, still holding a lot of Mr. Wolf's skin in his paws, was tossed loose and rolled a few feet away. I shouted at Mr. Wolf to stay and went after the groundhog. That woodchuck was so full of fight that he wasn't even thinking about getting away. Instead, he was facing me, his teeth bared and his claws up. I brought the stick down on his head hard, and something turned in my stomach at the sound of the wood hitting his skull. But the claws went limp, and he went down in a reddish-brown mound there among the leaves. Mr. Wolf was straining at my command, itching to get back into the fight, apparently not realizing that patches of his skin were hanging loose and he was bleeding a lot from some cuts around his throat and head. When I knelt by him, I could feel him tremble, and the way he was bleeding really scared me. I laid my hand on his back and felt the hair as stiff as bristles on a barbecue brush. I had to get help and fast, but I couldn't remember seeing a house for miles. I thought right off about Doc Fletcher. Mom hates it when I call him that because she thinks it sounds disrespectful, but I know Doc himself doesn't mind. Ever since Mr. Wolf was a pup, I'd always taken him there to the office by the common for shots and things. I always forget to say that whole doctor thing, and he never even looks up at me. "Come on, fellow. You'll have to walk," I told Mr. Wolf. He whimpered when I took his collar and started leading him away. He kept looking back at the clearing and making small feints, as if he still meant to break away from me and fight some more. It's going to hurt more if I have to drag you, I told him, tugging at his collar. He whimpered again at the pressure and started along, only looking back every few minutes with a low growl of warning. It didn't seem to me that the groundhog was going to threaten anyone ever again. From the way he lay there in that thick, silent ball, I feared that I'd killed him. Keeping the streaks of sunset color at my back, I tugged and coaxed Mr. Wolf through what seemed like miles of woods, over stone fences I'd never seen, even across one country lane where I hesitated a minute, hoping there'd be a house in sight. Nothing. When it seemed that dark was going to overtake us and that we were never going to get anywhere, I heard the sound of a car passing and knew we had finally reached the road. A barbed wire fence ran along the ridge there above the road, and I couldn't hang onto Mr. Wolf and get us both through it at the same time. When I got the strands pressed apart to make room enough for Mr. Wolf, he almost wouldn't go without me. Finally, I shoved him with my knee, and he went through and down the incline. I was still trying to get a barb loose from my coat when I heard the car coming. "Get back!" I shouted, but Mr. Wolf was just standing there dazed at the end of the road. The car was coming fast. Then the driver must have caught the dog in his headlights. The car slowed down. I tried to shout for the driver to stop, but the sight of Mr. Wolf, his eyes wide into the blaze of light, and the bloody flaps of fur around his neck must have scared the man. He hit the accelerator hard and was off before I could get down there by my dog. But at least we were on the north-south road, headed for Main Street in town. Each step seemed to hurt Mr. Wolf more than the last. Once in a while, he would try to lie down on the side of the road, but I kept prodding him up, coaxing him. We had to get to Doc Fletcher's before it was too late for Mr. Wolf. The wind was brisker all the time, and for some reason it made painful raw streaks when it whipped across my face. Okay, so Miles and Mr. Wolf go out to pick some hickory nuts, and Mr. Wolf encounters a groundhog, gets into a fight, and now they're on their way to Doc Fletcher's to see if they can get Mr. Wolf fixed up and hopefully help him. I think this book kept my interest because of just how it's written. I still find it exciting to write because of the way she wrote it. It just keeps you on the edge, especially if you've never, read the book before. And it seems like every time you read a book, even if you've read the same book over and over and over again in your life, that there's always something new to learn from it. So I really am enjoying reading this book. And, being able to read it out loud and publish it on a video. Who would have thunk it? 45 years ago, I would have never imagined, at the age of 10, that later on in life, when I was older, that I would be reading that book, and recording it on a video, and posting it on a website for the whole world to see. Isn't that amazing? Life really is amazing. It truly is. In fact, I'm going to be making more videos about my life and experiences in my life. And I'm going to make a playlist specifically for those specific videos. In fact, I'm probably going to try to go through and clean up some of my videos and make playlists instead of just my Candy's Ramblings. I'll have my Candy's Ramblings, but I'm also going to make individual playlists for those specific ramblings to go into, just so people can maybe find them a little easier. But yeah, basically my channel is going to be more about my life, experiences I've had in my life, things I've gone through in my life that's led me to where I am now. And then probably more about just me, you know, my life and things that's going on. Because that's my channel, and I'm hoping that I can bring a lot of knowledge and fun and life lessons and experience to the table for some of you folks. But I'm done with chapter 2 of Mr. Wolf and Me, and I'm gonna stop this video. Probably record another chapter or 2 just so I can get caught up. And then I'm gonna upload this video. So, peace, love, hugs, and nugs. See you on the next one.